I'm Ellen, 32 years old. I've been dating Jim for 6 years, and after 5 proposals, I finally got a yes. Now we're deep in wedding planning, but I'm so happy. I can't help but hum a tune. Wow, we're really getting married. One day while looking over our prenup, I was feeling on top of the world. But Jim, does this really matter? As I signed the contract, I tilted my head in wonder. You see, Jim's one condition for accepting my proposal was to have a prenup.
Assets we bring into the marriage stay our own. No meddling in future inheritances. If things change, like having kids, we'll revise the contract.
I get that it's important, but did we need it in writing? When I asked, he said,
Well, think of it as insurance.
Oddly vague, but if that's all it takes to marry Jim, I didn't dwell on it. However, the reason behind this would soon come to light. Jim has 2 older brothers. I met them briefly before the wedding during a visit to my future in-laws.
They're not bad, but both are a little quirky. Listen to them, but don't take everything to heart. Otherwise, you'll get carried away.
Caught off guard by Jim's blunt intro, I chuckled awkwardly, noticing that even my future in-laws agreed. I didn't think much of it, especially since our next meeting was at the wedding. Then, out of nowhere, I get a call one day when Jim's working over the weekend.
Hey, do you like fish?
Caught off guard, I hesitated. Who is this? I rack my brain for anyone who calls me Ellen, but no one comes to mind. But wait, they know my home phone number, so it can't be a stranger. I think to myself as roaring laughter comes from the other end.
It's me, Jim's big bro. Your big brother, Ellen.
My brother-in-law? Wait, is it the eldest or the second son? And what's with Ellen's big brother? I hold my tongue and ask, what's going on?
We're just back from fishing and caught a ton of rainbow trout. Can't eat 'em all, so thought you might like some. Jim loves trout meunier,
he says, which immediately lifts my spirits. Thank you. Jim is working today, but he'll be thrilled to have meunier when he gets back. I hang up and dart to the fridge. Good thing I have onions, bell peppers, and carrots in stock. Just as I finish julienning a heap of vegetables, someone arrives. Ah, it was Evan. I open the door and smile. Then,
quick, the bathroom, and cover the taxi fare for me, will ya?
Okay. I pay the taxi driver as my brother-in-law rushes to the toilet. After settling the bill, Evan comes out of the bathroom, takes a deep breath, and grins.
Thanks. And while you're at it,
my brother-in-law extends his palm towards me.
Hand over some cash.
Huh? Reading my confusion, he clarifies.
For the fish. Let's say $50 should do it.
What? I nearly dropped my wallet in surprise. I should have asked earlier, but I had assumed that the fish were for sharing, not buying. Of course, I felt bad for just taking. So I had prepared some unopened premium snacks as a thank you gift. So I wasn't expecting it to be totally free, but $50? My brother-in-law looks at me, as if it's only natural for me to pay. He's made the effort to come here. He's brought a lot of fish, and the last thing I want is for this to turn sour. I calm myself and pull $50 from my wallet and hand it to him.
Thanks, the fish are in the cooler. I'll leave the gear here. Tell Jim to get it back to my place later. Gotta go.
Wait, Evan? I'm puzzled by the casually abandoned cooler and fishing gear in the foyer. Ignoring my confusion, my brother-in-law takes the $50 and swiftly leaves. Wait a second. He's already gone, leaving me blocked in by the gear. What the? Why leave all this stuff here? Our place isn't big. It's in the way. Oh, and the taxi fare. I remember that he hasn't paid me back for fronting the cab fee. I hesitate to ask Jim to both take the gear back home and collect the taxi money. Then when I open the large cooler my brother-in-law left behind, I can't believe my eyes. On a bed of overly piled ice lay only 3 small trout, each barely 2 inches long. You've got to be kidding me. I slumped down in my doorway, defeated. What am I going to do with the shredded veggies? I had other issues, but I was too stunned for other words. Months later, I found myself heading to a cafe.
I have something important to discuss, but keep it a secret from my brother.
The one who reached out in a desperate tone was Brant. My brother-in-law warned that it was an important matter that also could affect my husband's future, and insisted that I shouldn't even tell my parents-in-law or my husband. Though it felt a bit sketchy, the cafe he chose wasn't a shady place, and it was during daylight hours. so I decided to at least hear him out.
Ellen, over here.
As I walk into the cafe, I'm greeted loudly by name. The shout echoes in the cafe, drawing the eyes of other patrons in my direction. Embarrassed, I nod my apologies to the surrounding customers and hastily head toward my brother-in-law's table.
Haha, you're so shy, so cute, Ellen.
His loud voice again attracts attention, making me cringe. Could you keep it down? Cutting off my request for him to speak more quietly, he blurted,
Let me introduce you. This is my new girlfriend.
A beautiful woman stands up from a spot I couldn't see. Hi, nice to meet you. Suddenly, I'm slapped hard across the face by a woman who angrily shouts, Are you kidding me? I'm left stunned, my cheek tingling. Why did a woman I just met slap me? As I'm losing my words, the woman storms out, loudly declaring, This woman is your new girlfriend. I'm disgusted. Goodbye to you. What the... Evan, what is going on? I wince at the pain on my cheek as I start to demand an explanation. Why did this just happen? Anger surges up inside me. You said this was important regarding my husband's future. Outrageous, I protested, but my brother-in-law just laughed it off. My brother-in-law chuckles.
Sorry, we were breaking up. You helped me clear the air. Thanks for playing the role of the girlfriend. Hey, don't get mad. Let's talk this through, Ellen.
Don't call me Ellen. Although I'm furious, my brother-in-law is unfazed.
Oh, come on. This kind of thing happens.
Are you kidding me? This is the first time something like this has happened to me. How can I possibly stay calm? I couldn't help but yell. Then my brother-in-law says,
Wow, Ellen, you're scarier than you look. Surprising. But hey, look around. You're freaking out the other customers.
I snap back to reality. As I look around, I see a multitude of faces staring at me. Confusion, annoyance, curiosity. Unable to withstand the gazes, I crouch down. My brother-in-law strides past me.
Well, see you. Say hi to Jim for me.
Evan, wait! Before I could catch up, he's out of the cafe. Then a timid waiter approaches me.
I'm sorry, your bill?
What the heck is going on? I wouldn't have shouted just like that if no one were around to hear me. I was fed up with Evan and Brandt for what they had put me through. I told my husband everything, and we agreed to ignore any messages from his brothers, unless absolutely necessary. Any necessary communication would go through my husband, and that's how we'd been handling it. But when it comes to my parents-in-law, it's a different story. They've always been wonderful to me, and besides, they're my beloved husband's parents. There's no way I could say no to joining their 60th birthday celebration. Wow, this place is bigger than I imagined. It's breathtaking, and the garden looks amazing. Is that a guest house? Yes, the main house is relatively new, but the guest house is a relocated traditional home. It's about 230 years old. Thatched roofs and verandas? Does that work well? Can I take pictures later? My mother-in-law, who loves old buildings, looked delighted, which made me smile too. Of course. My mother-in-law's cheeks flushed charmingly, and next to her my father-in-law leaned against a thick pillar, squinting in satisfaction. They both looked incredibly happy. They'd requested the party be held in this old house I'd recently inherited from my grandparents. Our first meeting was during a tour of old buildings. We sat side by side on the porch, had coffee, and hit it off when we realized we were the same age. It was some time ago when my father-in-law shared his bashful story of how he and my mother-in-law first met. Perhaps I should have invited you before we started moving the furniture. I felt a pang of regret. This house had been rented out as a restaurant until last week. After its closing, they had requested to tour the empty place, but maybe I should have shown it to them when it was still furnished. No worries, it's perfect this way. The peace and quiet lets us really soak in the atmosphere, my mother-in-law reassured me. True to their word, my parents-in-law arrived 2 hours earlier than the party was scheduled, taking their time exploring the house and enjoying coffee on the veranda. And then, the peaceful atmosphere was broken by noisy footsteps.
What? Only Jim is here to welcome us? No one else? And catering for dinner? Seriously?
It's hard to believe. The only one who gently set Brandt straight was my husband, Jim.
Come on, this is Mom's request, and you act like it's a letdown. But this is a deluxe bento box from a popular restaurant.
Jim says this with his usual smile, the one I love so much.
You act like it's just any lunchbox. Why didn't you just book the place during business hours? You're too cautious, Jim.
Evan sighed as he said this. But seriously, how much does he think it costs to book an entire upscale restaurant? You're complaining about today's party expenses being high, and you call me frugal? Plus, they haven't even paid me back for the cab fare from when they dumped those 3 measly trout on me, or for the expenses from their lovers' quarrel. I can't just let them walk all over me. I muttered some choice words under my breath. This was all unfolding on the day of my in-laws' 60th birthday celebration. As soon as my parents-in-law were off exploring another part of the estate, Brant blurted out,
"Hey, I've got a great idea."
"Yeah, your great idea doesn't usually mean good news for me." I must have shown my thoughts in my face because my husband sitting next to me looked concerned. And sure enough, both Evan and Brant started to smirk.
"We're family, aren't we?"
My husband tilted his head, clearly puzzled by the sudden inquiry.
"This place is closed now, right?" Yes it is."
My husband nodded, and the 2 brothers leaned in eagerly.
"Man, you hit the jackpot, marrying into money. Yeah, really. You've got this massive estate all to yourself now."
They sang this in a sycophantic duet.
"Are you guys misunderstanding something?"
But my husband's words went in one ear and out the other.
"Can't hog it all to yourself, right? A little sharing won't hurt."
At this point, their enthusiasm almost made me nauseous. Then it dawned on me. "What would you like?" I forced a smile, and their eyes lit up. They clearly thought that my inheritance was also my husband's, and by extension theirs to enjoy. As if. When the topic of my inheritance came up, my husband asked,
"You've stored the prenup safely, right?"
"I promise I won't interfere with what's yours, but I'm here if you ever need advice." That's what my husband said, and he really never asks for even a single dollar. I love how kind, clear-headed, and continually endearing my husband is. In stark contrast, the pitiful state of the 2 brothers. With people like that, there's no need for reservations.
"The location is prime real estate. Just step outside and you can get whatever you want right away. Plus, the mansion is really massive. I mean, it's too big, isn't it?"
Evan remarks.
"What if we told him, from today, your brother's family is going to live here. Cut ties if you're not okay with it."
Brant says, grinning. I took a deep breath. "Sure." The brothers tilted their heads in unison.
"Really?"
Despite having initiated the conversation, they seemed a bit taken aback when I reassured them. "It's fine, really. Feel free to do as you please. Not just Evan's family, but you too, Brant. Here are the keys." Handing them the bundle of keys, they all looked pleased with themselves.
"Good on you for being so understanding. Nice going, sis."
Eagerly, they began their moving preparations.
"Ellen."
I turned my real smile toward my concerned husband. "Don't worry, it's all good." Fast forward to a few days later. We were relaxing at home when the doorbell was frantically rung. Opening it, we found my brothers-in-law pale as ghosts.
"What the hell is going on? Tell them to stop now."
They were panicking, full of desperation.
"Our house is being demolished. We got home, and there were heavy machines tearing it down. We told them to stop, but they won't listen."
"So what are you going to do about it?" That was the general vibe coming from my brothers-in-law when I calmly chimed in. "Well, that makes sense." Everyone's eyes suddenly turned to me.
"What do you mean?"
"A tower apartment is going to be built there. They can't build it without tearing down the house, can they?"
"Huh?"
Both my brothers-in-law were dumbfounded. The reason the fancy restaurant shut down, or rather moved, was for that project. We kept the utility contracts through the end of last month because of the 60th birthday celebration. Was today inconvenient for you?"
Aha.
Realization dawned on them, and they went pale.
"Is this some kind of joke, Ellen?"
"Even if they say it's a joke, the bulldozer's already here, so there's no room for jokes. Especially when the bulldozer is already here. What's the point of lying about this? Maybe you should start taking out some valuables." Tired of their complaints, I laid out the harsh reality for my brothers-in-law. "Look, I made it clear when I asked for the demolition. Please get rid of everything left in the house. If the bulldozer is already working, I guess this will be over sooner rather than later. If I were you, I'd stop complaining and start taking out the important stuff." They looked at each other and then yelled,
"This is bad. Go, 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 hurry up!"
As I watched the 2 rush out, I turned to my husband. "Nobody really told them, huh?" My husband sighed deeply with a wry smile.
"We've all been strung along enough. Maybe a hard lesson is what they need. I hope it wasn't too much trouble for the workers, though."
Yes, I had informed not only my husband, but also my in-laws that I'd given the keys to my brothers-in-law and that they were planning to move. Of course, I'd also told them that the house was already sold, including the date of the turnover. So the decision was in their hands, whether or not to tell their brothers-in-law about the truth. In the end, everyone kept quiet. Don't worry, the buyer and the contractors are already in the loop, I assured them. I had a feeling it would come to this, so I had explained it to the buyer in advance.
I hope they learned their lesson,
my husband said. With that, we went to sleep. The next day, I can't believe they went this far. My mother-in-law sighed heavily. In the living room, my brothers-in-law seemed to shrink. They couldn't get in during the daytime because the workers stopped them, so they snuck in at night.
Well,
yes, they had ignored the no trespassing signs and tried to take valuables in the middle of the night. But a neighbor noticed their flashlight and called the cops, so they were easily caught. So you even managed to get into trouble with the police without taking anything of importance, my mother-in-law continued.
Well, you see.
My brothers-in-law attempted to explain, but no one was interested in their excuses. The past wrongdoings also came up, making it even worse for them.
Both of you should apologize to Ellen,
my husband said. But then Brant, who had been meek until now, suddenly snapped at me.
It's her fault to begin with. She tricked us. She willingly gave us the keys. Yeah, right. What's with this hypocrite? Selling the house without even telling us?
Faced with their unjust accusations, I could only offer a wry smile. I think you're misunderstanding. That property, both the land and the building, were inherited by me. Jim even drafted a prenuptial agreement to protect it. So you guys never had any rights to it to begin with.
What prenup? Contract?
I had no intention of elaborating on the term prenuptial agreement, which seemed like a curse word to them. Also, the sale of the land and house was consistent with my grandparents' wishes. They had considered selling it several times before, and yet my grandparents had wanted to keep it as long as they were alive. To be honest, maintaining it was too much work, so when I inherited it, my grandparents had suggested I proceed with selling it. So I just followed through with the realtor my grandparents trusted. Of course, it's my right to sell the property. My brother-in-law has no say in it.
But aren't we family? Don't be petty.
While considering whether my brother-in-law would argue further, I think back on my past. I started taking marriage seriously about 3 years ago. My dad raised me all by himself. My mom passed away right after giving birth to me. Dad and I were the best of friends. We'd go camping in the summer and snowboarding in the winter. So many memories. But then, out of nowhere, he got sick and passed away. I felt pathetic for never being able to do anything for him, and it broke my heart to feel his absence in the home we had shared. My husband is the one who comforted and supported me through this. He helped me with the funeral and rituals, made warm soup for me when I couldn't move all day, and spent nights talking about memories with Dad. He was there for me, patiently and lovingly, as I came to terms with my father's passing. If we're getting married, if we're going to be together forever, it has to be you, Jim. If there's something you don't like about me, tell me and I'll change. I shouted that during my 5th proposal, and I convinced Jim, who hesitated because of his troublesome family, to marry me. I don't regret that decision one bit. I always wanted to honor my grandparents' wishes after my dad passed away. And then there are these in-laws of mine. You haven't learned your lesson, have you? I was going to go easy on you, but not anymore. I'm going to demand compensation for all the trouble you've caused.
That includes taxi fares, overpriced fish, emotional distress from slaps, food and drinks at the cafe, utilities you used extravagantly in that mansion, and more.
My husband enumerates the damages, leaving my in-laws speechless.
Are you serious? Down to the last detail? Are you thieves or what?
And then there was more to come for my tearful in-laws.
We're cutting ties. Yikes. Wait, Dad, please.
Afterward, they were ousted from the family, shunned by distant relatives, and left with no one but each other in a tiny one-room apartment. Is this really okay? It's so wonderful. In the newly built tower condominium, we became neighbors on the same floor with my parents-in-law. Of course, one of the sale conditions was that we'd get a whole floor in exchange for the land. Thank you for accommodating my wishes. Some parts of the old house my grandparents left behind, like beams and furniture, were incorporated into our new home. We took new photos with my in-laws. We'll display these next to the old pictures. Captured there were the smiles of all my loved ones. I resolved to cherish these smiles forever.